Welcome everybody. Hope everybody is staying healthy, mentally and physically during these, I don't know what to call them, unprecedented times, I guess, just different times. Understand that y'all already did the pledge, so I won't ask George to do it again. Sorry I missed that. Let's see, as far as talking about monthly meetings, I think last time we spoke, or we're on in October, we indicated we're going to have our December meeting in person also, and those plans have changed here in the last week. We had one of our presenters, or the presenter, back out on us, and we're still trying to work out details with one of the other venues we wanted to try. So I think for December, December 7th, that monthly meeting, we're going to do that virtual, and assume it'll be during the lunch hour. I think we agreed on that, like we have done before on the virtual webinar. So stay tuned for that. January, that's still up in the air too. Still working on a venue, and still, I think, undetermined as to whether we'll do it in person or virtually or both. And like I said, still working on the venue to do that at. And you know, still want to, one thing, I don't know, can't take a vote right now, I guess. Maybe show of hands, maybe Jim or somebody could look, but I was looking at the calendar, and like January 4th is the first Monday, but that's seems like a pretty bad Monday because it's right after the big New Year's weekend, and I didn't know what folks thought about having a meeting on that Monday or wait until the following Monday. So I think that's it for monthly meetings. Next up, committees, announcements, and the first thing I want to get to is our awards committee, and I'm going to ask Barb Powell and Jim Hughes to come up front, and we do have a couple of awards to present tonight.
We would like to recognize our outgoing president. Since we did not have our May meeting, we always recognize the outgoing president with a plaque and a big show of appreciation. I don't think anybody in this organization has any idea how much work Brandy Roberts does for the organization. She works on every committee. I know she works with me on the scholarship committee, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours she spent with the organization. So we want to give you this plaque to show our appreciation as our outgoing president.
Thank you, Brandy.
I can only echo because Brandy sat in my office and helped me through a lot of the financial stuff, and she knows this stuff backwards and forwards, and that's just one instance. So Brandy, thank you for what you do for the association. It's a great job that you always do.
Now we'd like to present our 2020 Pipeline of the Year Award. Again, it's normally done in May. We're very privileged to have him with us tonight. Our Pipeliner of the Year for 2020 is Mr. Douglas Scott. Doug has over 30 years of domestic and international experience with successful engineering and leadership roles at Shell on major capital projects, including onshore, deep water projects, midstream, refining and chemicals. He also has leadership experience as managing engineering and operations departments. He's a graduate in mechanical engineering from Prairie View A&M and has a Master of Arts in International Business from U of H. He's also completed multiple engineering and executive management courses. But I'd like to just read a little blurb here about a project that he said finished this week. He's been working on the Shell Pipeline ethane project for how many years, though? 5 years. So I just like to read a couple of things that I found really, really, really interesting. For the last few years, Doug's been working on Shell's Falcon project. The pipeline had to be routed through challenging terrain with endless steep slopes incorporating 23 HDDs, one going under the Ohio River. He practiced remarkable and incredibly positive relations with hundreds of landowners, All land right of way was obtained through private negotiations. There was no right of eminent domain. This project positive impact on the local community by providing 1,500 people with jobs over a 2-year period of time. And the safety record for the job was twice as good as the industry average. In addition, Doug was innovative and took advantage of technology by using drones for security and HDD integral return locations through heat sensing detection. This was a first for Shell Pipeline Company. But he also took on another first. He slick repaired water-shedding technology through American Wiki. Also, on this project, he has 3 additional Shell firsts. He used automated ultrasonic testing machines for advanced welding qualifications. He utilized a track and trace barcode system to identify pipe joints and other materials from fabrication to final installation. And he used a GPS system to monitor installation quantities in various locations. As you can tell, he is a very accomplished, very strong pipeliner of the year for us. And one of the things that came in with every comment we got on Doug was that he was a man of strong conviction, strong ethics, and he was the type of person everybody would want to work for or work with. So Doug, we congratulate you. We'd like to honor you, and would everybody give us a joyous celebration for Doug and Pipeline. He did notice we're not having dessert anymore, so where is Alex? We need to talk about the venue that does serve dessert.
Wow. Thanks for the introductions. It's a real pleasure. It's an honor to receive this award from this great organization. I have a few people I'd like to thank in a few organizations. First, I'd like to thank my boss, Michael Thompson, for giving me the opportunity to be the project manager for Valley. I'd also like to thank Minnesota Limited, was our mainline contractor. They did a really good job. ACON was our engineering company. Grapevine was our facilities contractor. Local Edge provided inspection services. And there's just so many more. I mean, for a project this complex, we just had a wonderful team. And I really feel like I'm receiving this award for our project management team. It was a great team to work with, great people. It was just a really good experience. We just finished this project this past weekend, 5 years. And of course, this year was very challenging, but of course, COVID. But we always found a way to just increase our measures for safety and care for people. And I think we had 2 cases, and they recovered and came back to work. So we were very happy about that. So I'd also like to thank my wife, Melissa. She's also a pipeliner, so she understands the commitment and just to be a pipeliner. So thank you, Melissa. She's always here with the camera. Lastly, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being pipeliners, because it's so important what we do. We transport the energy which drives the economy for this great country. And it's just so important to recognize all of you. Thank you very much.
All right, Gary, you're on.
Hey, thank you, Doug. Congratulations. Brandy also. Same thing that Jim said, man. She coached me through a lot of, especially through the treasurer's role part, which is probably the most challenging and difficult role. While Barb's around, does she have any? I'm going to go through the committees and see if there's folks there. Does Barb have anything she wants to say about the scholarship?
Of course I do.
Of course.
Scholarship report. We didn't meet again, like I said, after March of last year. So little report on how we ended up. We gave out 152 scholarships that totaled $850,000. Number, I keep saying I'm going to retire when we get to $1 million, so would y'all please do something to get to $1 million? I've got some dates to announce for this next year. They're posted on the website as of Monday. Today's Monday, as of last Friday. The scholarship application date for next year, the application will drop on our website on January the 26th of 2021. The due date for all applications is February 23rd at noon. The interview schedule will be posted by March the 12th. The interview date will be Saturday, April the 3rd, and the location to be determined. I just want to remind everybody that we've changed one of the criteria for sponsorship for this year to be you have to have attended 6 meetings or events instead of 4 meetings or events, which we've had for years and years and years. Everybody's going to say it's a bad year to do that because of COVID, but I calculated it today on the back of my sheet. You have actually 16 opportunities to attend a Pipeliners event in 2020. Virtual meetings, the two-part PIMSA meeting, the fish shop, the conference, and the PYP event. So you actually had 16 opportunities to attend 6 events. So the requirement will be you have to have been a dues paying member for 2 years and you had to have attended 6 events. That's it, thanks.
Thanks, Barb.
And virtual meetings count.
Fish out, is Mason there?
No, sir, he's not here yet.
Yeah, we mentioned this last time, but 10th annual fish out still on first Saturday in June, 4th and 5th the next year. Going back to a 2-day event. And mile marker 37 in Corpus Christi, unless the Port A opens back up and changes their stance regarding large gatherings. Golf, is Trey there with the golf tournament?
It's still you, Gary.
Pardon?
He's not here.
Trey's not there yet. As everybody knows, we had our golf tournament a different format. Back at the end of September, Monday, September 28th, we raised about $145,000 towards the scholarship fund. It's a little bit less than normal. But given COVID, we're still moving forward and raising money for scholarships. So that's a good thing. And again, many thanks to all the volunteers, sponsors who gave all their time and talents and treasures to make that event a success, and all of our events for that matter. Jim, you want to say anything about sporting clays that we had on October 16th?
Sure, just real quick. I paid for 649 shooters this last event. That's the biggest one we've ever had. So congratulations. Rough numbers, we always average anywhere from 115 to about 130 or $35,000. This time, it's roughly $120,000 we added to the scholarship fund. So thank you very much.
Veterans, George, you have anything you want to say about for the veterans?
They sure do. Hold on just a second.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over real quick first to Tana Harris. She's from Combined Arms here in Houston, works with a lot of different veteran groups, and she's going to talk about Operation Santa real quick. You need me somewhere else? Where do you need me?
Get closer together. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Tana Harris. As you just heard, I do work for a veteran service organization here in Houston. Any more veterans in the audience here besides this one? So just briefly, Combined Arms is a group of veteran service organizations and also larger organizations that have a veteran component to it, such as Goodwill, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Easter Seals. So it's not specifically a veteran organization, but when you're transitioning out, you don't know what organizations are real, which ones are the good ones, which ones are the shady, shammy ones. And that's what we do. We vet our organizations very, very carefully. We have about 90 right now. We're growing. We have another Combined Arms in El Paso, in Dallas, and in Austin. And with Operation Santa, the way that this works is we reach out to the families that we know are in some sort of crisis, whether it's financial, mental health services, maybe it's caregivers of veteran kids. And we reach out to these folks and we say, how old are your kids? What is the gender of your kids? What are they sort of interested in? And so then we then take all the donations that people all across the city, a lot of breweries, by the way, lots of breweries are doing donations for us. Eureka Heights, Platypus, Buck Breweries, if you want to bump into a brewery. But also you guys, like last year getting so involved. And so we go and we take all these donations, we look and see what is the family really wanting, and we try to make those fit for that specific family. Our event last year, we had 600 people come through. About 250, almost 300 veteran families came to a party, and the kids go off and do crafts and watch movies, and the parents go into where volunteers are, and they retrieve the bag that's specifically packed for them, and volunteers wrap their gifts for them. These gifts are put in a bag, and they can take them to the car. We want to preserve the magic that their gifts come from Santa. We also want to preserve the dignity for the families, so the kids don't think or know that their gifts, their Christmas gifts, came from another organization or charity. It's really important for us to maintain that for these families. Well, this year we're in a different challenge. So we're going to do a drive-through event. And we're going to maybe confirm to do it at Midway Park, again, as a drive-through event. And so the way it'll work this year is families will have a confirmation, they'll drive up, they'll give a volunteer their family number, and they'll go retrieve their gifts, load them in the car, give them a couple of rolls of wrapping paper. But we also are going to have sort of a parade, a static parade. So you're standing as a kid, parade goes by. Well, this will be the opposite of that. So when families drive by and they go to retrieve their toys, we're going to have Santa, not the real one, elves, and elves, dancers, live music. Do you know? A lot of people tell me that. I'm not really sure of that. But we'll have dancers, we'll have live music. We're hoping to have a mariachi band out there, anything to be Christmassy. We'll decorate with trees and all sorts of stuff. It'll just be so tacky. But it's just to distract these kids and give them a little bit of a party, as much of a party as we can give them safely. So Operation Santa is happening. We're currently saying December the 5th. If the Asphalt Foundation confirms for us, we'll be on December the 12th. So we'll have an additional week. I will be at Kirby Ice House next week. I know a lot of you guys will be there too. If anyone wants to bring a toy next week, I will be there with lots of boxes. And we also have a link on Amazon. So we've created a bunch of different choices. We're trying to make sure that every age group gets a little something. We're talking about 150 to 175 families, and we'd like to give them 2 or 3 gifts per family. So anything you guys can do, again, because we're so amazing last year. I mean, it was like Toys R Us landed at our office. I mean, it was crazy. And so we really appreciate the support. The need is greater this year. And if the more toys we get, the more families we can reach out to and help. So anything you guys want to do, you've got the link. Again, toy boxes out here, Kirby Ice House next week. Email me, call me, do whatever. We'll make sure you guys know how you can donate. How do we find one?
So you go to Amazon.
Yeah, I do. So kind of stealing some of my thunder. So if you go to the Pipeliner's website, and you go to the veterans area, you will find Operation Santa in there, and the Amazon link is there. Okay, now when you do the Amazon link, one of the things I found out, because I did it this week, because I hate packing toys with me, and plus I got all your toys home with me. So what I did was I went on there, and so as long as you pick something off the list, then the address will come up to send it directly to Combined Arms. Okay, it's either coming up as Operation Santa. Okay, or it may be still coming up as Tana Harris, but it's one of the two. Okay, but just pick something. But you can literally pick anything you want off of Amazon to send to them. A lot of the toys that are on there are more for younger kids, as you would imagine, but there are older kids, teenagers as well. Okay, and so things that they need. So if there's stuff that you can contribute, this has been a difficult year, and I know that. A lot of us have had a lot of issues this year. We've been through challenges with work, with everything else, where we don't know if we're going to have a job tomorrow. Okay, again, these are folks that are really hurting. They're veterans that live in this area. Okay, and veterans are funny. Most of you that are veterans, you know what I'm talking about. We don't ask for handouts. We don't ask for stuff. Okay, so it's really tough sometimes, but we get these folks in, and we can get them some little joy on Christmas. And as I said, it comes from them. It doesn't come from us. It comes from the families to strengthen that family. But you can go on our website, Pipeliner's website, find the Amazon link so that you can go ahead and do the contributions that way. Next week on the 12th, we'll get on the website here. I got to do one final thing. I'm working with Kirby Ice House. But next week, we're going to do a veteran social. So, of course, anyone's always welcome to come, but we're going to do a veteran social at Kirby Ice House next week. It will be on Thursday, the 12th, not on the 11th, because Thursdays tend to be easier because most people have Friday off, right? So we'll do it on Thursday, the 12th, to do that veterans event. And as I said, we'll get that up on the website here, hopefully by the end of this week, so that you can sign up for that, so we know how many people are coming. Okay, but again, if you have the wherewithal to donate to help out with Combined Arms, okay, this is kind of like the Toys for Tots drive that most people are familiar with, but this one stays here in the Houston area, helping Houston veteran families. So it's a great thing, and so we were happy to do it last year. We're really excited about it this year, and there will be a volunteer opportunity once we know which day it will be, whether it's the 5th or the 12th, where you can come out and actually help with the toys and all the festivities that are going on. So as soon as we know what date it is, we'll get that posted as well.
All right, Jerry, it's all you.
Thank you, George. PYP, is Todd there?
He's not here, Jerry.
He's not there. They rescheduled their annual bowling event to, I think, the first week of December, we believe. There should be more coming out on that on the website this week. And he also wanted me to mention PYP mentorship program still alive and well. Contact Grady Harrison or Brandon Butts for more information on that. What about education? Is Ed there? Ed Hetzko?
Gary, and for the sake of time, why don't you go through all these, because we're running a little long. So if you want to go through these quickly, we can get into our program.
Oh, I could go this real quick, yeah. Today, we only have 45 enrollees in the PTEX program, which is kind of disappointing. We put a lot of money and effort into getting this first module out there, and we only have 45 people enrolled so far. So encourage you all to take advantage of that. It is free for the members. And then good segue into membership. Right now we have 1,414 paid members, and that's paid through the end of next year because we extended our membership year. As Barb mentioned, they need 6 recorded attendances to qualify for scholarships. Also need to mention, if your past due membership fees are not paid by the end of this year, 12/31/2020, you will be dropped as a member. You will not be able to sponsor a scholarship applicant. You will not be included in the membership directory, and you must reapply for membership to rejoin the association. So you really need to get your membership dues updated by the end of the year, please. Thank you. Members also need to remember to update your profiles with current information, because we're going to use that to put in our annual directory, and we're going to pull that information on December 1st. So go in and update your information by December 1st, please. Website, on behalf of the website committee, Paul and his folks, and the entire association for that matter, we'd like to thank our website sponsor, RockGuard HD, to helping fund our website. As far as treasury, checking, 600 right around 627,000 right now, and savings a little over 100,000. So we're in good position to give out again some good scholarship money this year. I had a lot more stuff to do, but I'm not going to go through that. So I'm just going to say any new members or first time attendees, welcome to the association. If you want to find out what's going on with other chapters, there's links to all the other chapters like Louisiana, San Antonio, Permian Basin, Oklahoma City, Tulsa on our website. And just a reminder, if you haven't already done so, if you haven't voted, go vote tomorrow. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Jim and let him introduce our speaker for this evening.
All right, thank you, Gary.
Thank you all.
Well, for some of you, this guy does not need an introduction because if you know anything about Wayne Christian, first of all, he's a strong supporter of Judeo-Christian values. He's a strong supporter of Texas, and he's a strong supporter of oil and gas, not just here in Texas, but nationwide. And he is our champion. This guy is. So just a little bit about him. He's elected as our 50th Texas Railroad Commission Commissioner in November 2016. He appointed by Governor Greg to the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission as the official representative of Texas. He's which is one of the oldest and largest interstate compacts in the nation. And it was formed over 80 years ago. He was high school valedictorian. I was on the other end of that spectrum. Graduate from Stephen F. Austin University with a BBA in general business. And he also found success in the music industry. A lot of people don't know he had his own country gospel band for a long time, the Mercy River Boys, and actually went on to be a finalist for a Grammy Award in 1970. So 1987, he gained valuable experience in business banking and real estate. He opened a financial services business, which I understand your daughter is helping you with now. 1996, he was elected to the House of Representatives as the first Republican elected from deep East Texas since Reconstruction at the end of the Civil War. I can't say that here. Anyway, during his time in the House, he was a leader of the conservative renaissance in the Texas State Senate, or the House of Representatives, and successfully assisted in the fight to elect a Republican majority in the Texas legislature. There's a lot more here, but with that, Representative Mr. Christian, love us to hear what you have to say for us.
I got a timer, so I got 20 minutes to horn honks, and then I'm supposed to finish up. Okay? So you're gonna have to say this got to go all night. You know, my wife always said, "Don't ask how long you gotta ask when you need to shut up." That's what you ask. Let me tell you something I always like to talk about is that the oil and gas industry. I'm sitting here with a group of folks that are responsible for the greatest, most compassionate, most successful lifestyle and nation and country in the history of mankind. That's your industry. 1900 Texas, fact. 1900 Texas, 85% of our population was in agriculture. Moms and dads and their kids would work daylight to dark 6 days a week and take off on Sunday, go to church, and get back to work again daylight to dark 6 days a week. The average lifespan was 45 years of age in 1900 in Texas. You had diseases around this globe for which there were no cures. You had almost every family in the state had a child under age 5 that probably passed away from diseases. The three largest environmental causes of death at that time were, number one, starvation, when you have a bad crop, bad times, didn't have enough food to eat. Number two, the environmental cause of death was freezing to death during the winter. It'd be too cold for the elderly or for the small, sick children, and there wasn't enough heat to produce. And the third was hurricanes. You remember the terrible storm back in 1900 down in Galveston, one day, 12,000 people killed in hurricane. Well, there's been a change. Now lifespan 75, 1.5% of our population feed 1/3 of the world. You have all kinds of fertilizers and other things that come from petroleum products that allow us to feed the world, and we no longer die of starvation in this country. We have an obesity problem, right? A little different. We no longer freeze to death. We ache and moan and bellyache because the thermostats are grenade or two off or on. You know, and hurricanes, any death is terrible, but now when the hurricane's coming, people have the option of getting in the car, turning the motor on, and driving off. You know, and the lifespan now is 75 years of age and going up. Which world would you rather live in? You know what's responsible for the difference in those two worlds? Oil, gas, and coal. That's it. And you know, we just got through living. The neat thing I never, neat article on this Gregory, we had just lived through the best decade in human history. Listen to that. The best decade. Poverty at the beginning of this decade was 40% in the world, 40%. As of the 1st of January, before all the downturn we had. it was at 10%. You know, what's going on here? Times are good. The most successful time in the history of mankind. Would you read that looking at the news? It's amazing after 30 years of being in politics and wondering kind of what's going on in the world. It's kind of frustrating to me to go into the oil and gas industry itself as the railroad commissioner of the state. And I'm sitting here looking at what has created the most successful society in the history of the world. Do you realize that in the United States of America today, the poorest person we have, the most deserving, lowest on the scale we have of welfare need, the lowest, eats more red meat, more heated square foot heated area they live in, is more like a telephone, a television, and an air conditioner. That is the second richest population on planet Earth, the civilization in Western Europe. Think of it. That's what we have in America. God knows you wouldn't know it listening to the news right now. And it scares me as an old man that finally, after all these years, the Railroad Commission, of course, is the most respected regulatory agency on planet Earth for regulating oil and gas, according to Forbes magazine. 16 offices statewide. We have about 900 folks that work there. And we're busy trying to help oil and gas. But I tell you, folks, let me tell you, it's getting kind of frustrating when you start watching the news and watching even some of our own companies that won't put on the big boy and girl britches and step back and defend ourselves from an onslaught of this information that's coming out terribly hard. So after all this success, after creating the greatest economy in the world, after making it all great, we in the oil and gas industry are now being told that fossil fuels are going to kill everybody on the planet, we're polluting the world, and that we need to get away from oil and gas as quickly as possible. And if that is the case, if we are detrimental and we are going to, as an industry, harm our children and grandchildren. Now, let me make this clear. Are we a detriment to humanity? That's Mother Earth. Two different things. Mother Earth ain't exactly a sweet lady. Go in the pulpit in your backyard for about a week and you'll find out real quick, Mother Earth is not a honey. You know, the greatest defense against a bad environment that is not friendly to humankind is a good defense. And right now is oil, gas, and coal. So if we're harming mankind, which is my children, grandchildren, and each other, with oil, gas, and coal, we're going to pollute the world, harm the people, or harm people, then I guess we should just all agree that we should all work to shut down our industry. So that's exactly what they're trying to do, right? Just got through, this last fall was up at the energy committee up in was the and the governor of Alaska said, you know, we don't have really any long-term problems in technology. We don't have any long-term problems in product and reserves. We have no problem with anything. There's only one problem we have, significant problem. That's political. Okay, folks, it's time we kind of grew up and understand what war we have in, and it's our job to fight it. Let's see, okay, if I'm going to be the regulator that's been elected to represent 30 million people in the state of Texas for their minerals, for their oil, gas, and coal, we represent everything from in the ground to it gets to the refinery, pipelines and all. That's what we as the railroad commission. If I'm the elected official supposed to decide this and regulate that, then all of a sudden, I mean, what are the reasons for shutting down the industry? What are the reasons for giving up oil, gas, and coal? Are we out of supply? You hear we're going to run out. I remember Jimmy Carter on television. I'm old enough. I remember him on television telling us we had 9 years of oil left. We had to turn up the thermostats in the summer and down during the winter, and it was terrible. And 2016, we had about 50 plus years available. I think 34 billion barrels they identified oil by just oil. And so we kind of still have oil going. The other thing is that supply. Are we out of supply? Number two is the cost. Is it more beneficial to go into another industry? Are we over costing? Is it cheaper? Can we sustain the cost of what we're doing? Our environment, as I mentioned before, if we're harmful to humankind, then maybe we should reflect on what's going on. Number one, what we're trying to do is present cheap, plentiful, reliable energy. It has to be consistent, predictable, and sound science. So if we look at that, are we running out? What's the supply? That was the first factor, right? Well, in 2016, from Brownville through Alaska, we had 34 billion barrels reserve. That basically was around 50 years of oil and gas left in the identified reserves in just the United States, okay? So 50 years, I can see, okay, that's kind of a reason we could be thinking about it and doing something. 50 years is not a lifetime, so we do something. In 2017, we discovered in West Texas, the Permian Basin field out of Midland and all that area in West Texas. And when it first came in, it was about 2 billion barrels identified. Then it went, when they started digging in the shell, went up to about 4 billion, then to 8 billion. I think it's about 9 billion now. I was out talking to the old oil and gas guy in Midland, and he said, why all of my folks that have been predicting on this stuff have looked at that, and the potential of this field is over 200 billion barrels. I'm thinking, whoa, this is kind of nuts. I'm a politician. I ain't gonna get in front of folks and say that. I come to Houston. I'm in this oil and gas president's office in some big tower up here somewhere, okay? And all of a sudden I say, hey, Mr. So-and-so out here said it was 200 billion. He said, no, he's wrong. And he brings in his engineering staff and they roll out all the toilet paper, big rolls of what they got for their graphs and stuff. And he said it's 230 billion barrels. Now understand this, folks. That's 9 times the United States reserve we had identified. That's not 50, that's 500 years that we have. So the supply is kind of there. It really comes out to right at 230 billion potential barrels and around 600 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. The largest supply, maybe next to Venezuela in the history of the world. Interesting. So if you go looking at that, you go look at the supplies of it, that kind of means we're not running out real quick. So that doesn't justify spending additional the supply problem. Let's look into the requirements, and let's look at what are the options about renewable energy. And that's probably our one. They said we need to move away from fossil fuels to renewable energy, right? Okay. Land requirements for renewable energy. For 1,000 megawatts of electricity, wind takes 115 square miles. Solar takes 27 square miles. Natural gas is 3 square miles. Okay. In fact, for the current grid, to replace the current grid in the United States of America, you would have to cover the land mass of 3 states with windmills and solar panels to generate enough to do the grid. Now, if it meet the 3 states, I might consider working it that way. Okay. But seriously, it's impossible to do. You look at what the cost is. So we look at the requirements. Do we have the supply? And the answer, I think, is we have more than we've ever had. The other thing is the cost. We're talking about cost. If it costs too much, it's something cheaper. Taxpayer funding of subsidy. Let me tell you something as a long-term politician. Whenever you say the government is going to subsidize this, the government is funding that, we have a federal grant coming in to pay for this, and you have politicians tell you, as they are right now, that we're going to give this, and we're going to pay for highways, and we, the government, on this, and we're going to pay for your check, and we're going to pay for this, and pay for all this stuff. Government creates no money. It's all taxpayer dollars. There's 3 kinds of money in the world. There's first party money, that's my money, and I use what I buy, what I'm going to buy with my money, and I use it. So I'm concerned about the price. I'm concerned about the quality and quantity of what I buy, right? First party money. Second party money, where it's my money, but I'm not going to use it. So I'm concerned about the price. I'm not really concerned about the quality of Aunt Sadie's Christmas present, okay? I ain't going to use it, but I am concerned about the price. Then there's third party money. Third party money where it isn't my money, so I don't care about the price. And I ain't going to use it, so I really don't care about the quality, quantity, whatever's going on there, right? Listen to this. Every government purchase is a third party purchase. They don't care what the price is, they don't care how much it costs, and they don't care what the quality is and what the results overall. Now, does that mean there's going to be waste in the sewage department? You bet. It's going to be waste in the road and bridge department. It's going to be waste in government spending. You bet. It's why? Because it's third party money. Ain't my money. I'm just giving it away and buying something else. So where is it best to be handled? How about our private industry? That it's their money and they're concerned with the quantity and the quality and what it bought. You see the difference in this socialized idea that we're talking about moving to tomorrow? A little bit difference here in the direction you go, third-party money. Texas direct subsidies we give to the wind and solar companies on the cost. Right now, it's $2.5 billion a year that we got from taxpayer dollars, your dollars in the state of Texas alone, hand, wind, and solar. The tax credits, see, also because of the new regulations that we have in Texas on wind and solar, we've stopped a lot of the improvements and upgrades to our coal facility, our lignite facility, generating facilities, and other facilities, gas facilities. We've stopped a lot of those upgrades because we're trying to time those out. And so the cost of those less quality production or lower quality producing current refined for producers of electricity are up at about a cost of $4 billion per year to the taxpayer. So that's $6.5 billion. Did y'all know you could go get a electric car and the state of Texas will pay you around, the state of Texas and the feds, I think the state of Texas will pay you about $10,000 for your electric car. Okay? And the federal grant is sent down, our state house decided and all this wisdom, well, we're going to just dash out, you got $10,000 for every car you buy. When's the last time y'all put anybody handed you $10,000 to buy a car? So these folks drive around their Teslas all over town, talking about running on wind or solar. And you just bought 10,000. These solar panels are going all around town. They said, we'll put these solar panels on your roof. It'll save you money. 40% tax credits from the federal government. Okay, that's your dollars. You're getting 40% for that neighbor who's got that sun panel on his roof, and you're also paying high electric bills because by state law they have the state grid. The PUC has to buy any excess capacity generated from that solar panel that you pay for on your neighbor's house. And guess what happened? Your electric bill goes up to do it. Hey, that's what you call government, isn't it? I mean, this limited partnerships, when natural gas and different generators, you can get significant tax credits, 40% for wind and solar, and tax credits, that's tax partnership credits, and 21% tax credits just for buying and investing in wind and solar. So understand that everything I just read you is money that's coming from your family to the wind and solar business, not the oil and gas. Where's the cost difference on that for oil and gas? Let me give you another example here of cost. There was an article in the Houston Chronicle, and Houston Chronicle was talking about that to do away with capping abandoned oil wells with extreme cost the taxpayers can have. So I did an article that came out Friday in the Houston Chronicle, pointing out the fact that the taxpayer pays $0 for capping abandoned wells in the state of Texas because we created a fund for it. We have bonding on it, and the fund is created to cover that. And so literally it's almost zero cost to the taxpayer because the Railroad Commission makes fees from different companies that we use. But did you know for the windmills that you see hundreds of in West Texas, Central Texas, each one of those takes about 500 gallons of oil to run to keep the blade lubricated, by the way. The other thing is also to take one of those down, the cost is $535,000 for one. They wear out in about 10 to 15 years. So you've got a $15,000 to $20,000 to cap an oil well after about 35 to 40 years of usage. You got 10 to 15 years for $535,000. There is no mechanism by which you and the taxpayer are going to wind up having to pay for some guns. There's nowhere to put the blades. The Wyoming has started taking them, but they filled up real fast. You should bury those suckers. So a little difference. And let's go to financing then. Financing to the point that right now I'm fighting with the organization. There's these mutual funds in New York now that have told their investors, we can invest in anything except ESG funds, and it's anything except oil and gas. Okay? And so right now in the downturn, what's harming us tremendously, a lot of our companies are trying to get back on their feet, can't get the money, can't borrow the money, because these ESG funds are limiting the oil and gas organization, which is against federal law to target a specific industry. So I'm filing a resolution with IOGCC to go against, for the feds to go against these financial companies. But the weird thing, the Rockefeller families are leveraging their fortune and network of wealthy friends to pressure major U.S. banks to stop investing in fossil fuels. Rockefeller. Okay? Let's talk about cell science real quick and what little time I have. I think it's very interesting. And these are just questions I have on articles I read. Ian Gilbert, the head of Emeritus of the Earth Science in the University of Melbourne, says climate change catastrophe, biggest scientific fraud that's ever occurred. You have the father of global warming. Those of you remember Johnny Carson, this guy Hansen from NASA was on all the time talking about the world's coming to an end. We're going to have the ice age and the cold, all these age and stuff. He finally came out in his retirement said, according to Hansen, Al Gore took the data provided in a worst case scenario and intentionally twisted it, rebranding it as global warming, making tens of millions of dollars in the process. 49 NASA scientists finally got together and said the truth, that there is no significant threat to the environment from oil, gas, and coal and fossil fuels. You know, you hear this, but believe the scientists. And you've heard this one. Why aren't you believing the scientists? From the scientists, you got to believe that settled science, which is an oxymoron. Competitive enterprise institutes. Listen to this. In 2000, David Benner, a researcher at the University of East Angeles Climate Year Center, said children aren't going to know what snow is. In 2004, the U.S. Pentagon warned George W. Bush, this is the Pentagon, 2004, that major European cities will be beneath rising seas. Britain will be plunged into Siberian climate by 2020. Missed that one. 2008, Al Gore predicted the polar ice cap would be gone in mere 10 years. Missed that one, didn't he? The ecologist Kevin Watts predicted in 1970, we were going to, in 1970, if present trends continue in the year 2000, that there were going to be 4 degrees colder and the global mean temperature 11 degrees colder by the year 2000. Okay? Let me give a quick just Paris Accord logic in this stuff that everybody just says immediately if Biden is president, he's going to be the first thing to on the Paris Accord game because Trump failed out. Let me give you this. I went to my grandchild's soccer game last Saturday. The night before, the Weather Channel told me it was going to be 62 degrees. I get there in my folding chair, it is 51 degrees. Okay? Now that's in 24 hours they were wrong. The Paris Accord is going to take $78 trillion, $78 trillion, and their whole job is that their whole purpose. My thing went off and turned off. No, stop playing. Timer. All right, $78 trillion, and their whole purpose. This is fact. Check it out. Is that potentially we will decrease the increase in temperature by 1.7 degrees in the next, I think, 50 years. Now get this. They can't tell you within 6 degrees 24 hours in advance. But we're going to pay $78 trillion for 1.7 degrees in 50 years. That's what Paris works for. This is insanity, folks. It is insanity, and it's been lied to by us. Let me go through this. This little sheet over here, down a few out there. Of course, I got to do on pipelines. Just to let you know, pipelines are the safest, most reliable, efficient way of transporting quality oil. You know this. For 50 miles of 20-inch pipeline, there are 1,650 fewer trucks on the road. Texas has the largest pipeline structure. All this. You know, should we ban fracking? Okay, or polluting the water, right? This is Rex Tillerson, chairman of Exxon and former Secretary of State. Said there have been over 1 million wells hydraulically fractured in the history of the industry, and there's not one, repeat, not one reported case of freshwater aquifer having been contaminated from hydraulic fracture. 2017, the Railroad Commission of Texas did a study of over 10,000 injection and disposal wells in the state of Texas. EPA commended us on the study. You know what it found? Not one place has drinking water been polluted, nor even secondary resource drinking water sources have been polluted in the state of Texas. I remember when we used to have smog alerts in Houston, Texas. Do y'all remember that? You get up and be all this smog in the, what do we have now? We have pollen alerts. I mean, this is real, folks. Think of this. And yet we still are sitting here with a darn potential election tomorrow that's going to say, keep it in the ground, oil and gas, to destroy it. Let me tell you why that's a little bit of a problem. Back to the electric grid. In my office, and he said, oh, well, Mr. Christian, we're all for these windmills and solar panels. We put money into them. I said, why? He said, because we know they can never, by physics, take over 15% of the grid. No way, by science, by physics, they can. And so we've got 85% and our spread is covered. Of course, I proceeded to instruct him that I thought how offensive that was to his consumers, which meant he didn't care if they paid $10 a gallon for gasoline, and his golden parachute must be covered well on their spread because it wasn't going to affect his problems that he had. So I think that is a terrible problem we have, are people that are not concerned about the quality and price of what their consumers enjoy. That's a problem, folks. And it's inside us in every place in this nation that's going on. Right now, the entire amount that wind and solar take care of our grid is 9.3%. That's why they're having blackouts in California. They shut down oil and gas. That's why they're having blackouts in New York City and all. And what they're headed for is if they come in there with AOC and their Green New Deal, which I had a resolution before IOGCC saying we didn't want anything to even look like a step net because to the Green New Deal, and Congress do it. I had that sent to Congress by the states in Canada that are producing oil and gas. So we're looking at what's going on in the United States of America. Let me shut up with this and I'll take questions. A bunch of junk here I can go over about climate change, the truth of climate change. Time magazine, 1973, the big freeze, 1977, the big freeze, 2001, global warming, 2006, be worried, global warming. Then it went to climate change. Then it went to CO2. It's like, if this is consistency from their movement, you know, we're being duped. And it's by a bunch of Vietnam draft doctrine tenured professors that have taught 2 generations of our kids and our current teachers what the lie about our country and our oil testing program. Closing illustration, 1917, World War I. The British, the European folks sent this letter back and forth to its American Museum of Oil and Gas. And it said, we want to thank, back at that time, Ranger Field was discovered up here in Eastland County in Texas. And we sent a ton of oil, and he said, and the letter said, we thank Texas for the wave of oil that we had in World War I. This is from the European Commonwealth at that time. World War II, Winston Churchill, look up the quote, I've got it on my wall in my office. Winston Churchill, it was the Kilgore oil field, sent 80% of the oil to our forces in World War II. And Winston Churchill sent back a statement. It was the big itchy little edge pipeline out of Kilgore, Texas. And Winston Churchill sent this tremendous quote back. He said that we won World War II on a sea of oil from East Texas. Neat. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been given, God has given us a third shot here at it. Just think of this, third shot. 230 potential barrels of oil, billion barrels of oil, the largest find in the history of our country at a time like this. Now, what do we call those folks that were responsible for their oil and gas discovery during World War II? The greatest generation. Think of where we are in history right now. God has just handed us the largest discovery we ever had. What's going to be said about our generation? What we did? Are we going to put a bunch of yahoos that say keep it in the ground? Are we going to sit back and say, oh, we don't dirty anybody's water, we don't dirty any of this, and nothing is proven? It's time we put on our big boy and girl britches and put on a positive, it's just we need to tell it like it is, folks. Just sitting back and let other folks talk lies about us for decades so they can make a bunch of money and shut down what has made this the most prosperous, successful, healthy, generous, benevolent country in the history of the world, and destroy our industry is something that we should not live with. I encourage to go and vote. And you know which side I'll be talking about, and not the ones that are saying keep it in the ground. And especially Jim Wright running for railroad commissioner, and Mr. Bloomberg, or whoever it is about New York, has given $1.6 million to his opponent. The National Party has given another million. It's about $5 million they've handed his opponent. And you know, I don't like the idea of New York buying Texas. I'll shut up.
question and answer. There's a couple of mics that's going to go around, so you want to stay up here. Anybody's got a question?
Go on right here, Mark.
Thank you very much for the absolutely incredible presentation. My question is, most of the good people here know what you're talking about. We understand what you're talking about. We believe in what you're talking about. What about that other 50% of the U.S. that just seems to be out in Never Land and thinks that you can run this country on unicorn milk and laughter to small children?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you the thing that we got to be. You and me and the little guys, and my dad ran Inco Station in Teon, Texas. I know what little is in oil and gas. We work on pipelines, mid-line, as most of the folks do. The major internationals are completely playing into the Green New Deal and everything else. We've had major international companies that you'll know by name. They've said by 2050, they're going to get away from all carbon, away from all this. Nobody is standing up defending a darn thing, what I've told you about the facts on our side. And that's what we've got to insist that we start doing. You start actually, instead of buying what the oil and gas industry, there's this magazine article said the 10 worst enemies of oil and gas are, number one was the oil and gas companies. Because we sit here and we now let's give them for their fundraising event, get them this, or let's give the Green New Deal this, let's give this, that, the other, let's have a carbon tax, let's do this. And the fact is, when you hire a public relations firm from New York City who totally believe keeping the ground what to do to handle your public relations, we have been very successful in our corporate marketing. We have put ads on television that algae is the future of energy in America, and dumb junk. And it's just we've got to grow up, be big, and fight. And we're not doing it. I'm very as your railroad commissioner who's in charge of the minerals in the state of Texas population, I am very concerned about the future holds. Because just one loudmouth politician ain't going to change the world. No other question.
I think we're all on your side.
Milton Heath Consultants, thank you. Great message. And so this whole COVID thing has really been a disaster for a lot of companies. Our associations, they're suffering. I'm part of the Interstate Natural Gas Association of the Americas, and one of the things that they're working on is the messaging. And you know, I live in Missouri City, Texas. I got 5 boys, and I feel like I've got a responsibility to start, you know, standing on my 2 feet, talking to these teachers, talking to my kids' teachers, the students, even going back to my university up in Michigan. That whole place has been turned over to the bleeding heart liberals. You know, they're trying to formulate the messaging for members to, you know, take back to your communities, take back to your schools, talk to the kids, talk to the people. And I know, as I said, Inc. is working on this. I got to embrace it, learn it, take it back, take responsibility for this. So you have great messaging. I took a lot of notes down here, a lot of facts that stand, that work in our favor. And what are some resources that you would recommend that we have within our grasp that we can take? Because the thing that I'm struggling with is I've got to take this. I'm passionate about it. I think most of the guys and gals in this room feel everything that you're saying, feel that passion. And how do we carry that message back in? What resources do you have available that we can train ourselves up? And, you know, I'm thinking PowerPoints, you know, some messaging. What are some first steps that we need to do to get that?
Let me give you the best one I can give you real quick. I'm just going to interstate internet tonight and look. Let's say block us, you know, is Alex Epstein, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels, great book. Jim said that he had the book. I gave cases of them away. He's a philosopher. Never long his, because he started doing his thesis when he was graduate school at Stanford, I believe it was, on oil versus the green, on the environmental versus fossil fuels. And said he found all this information on how terrible oil and gas was, but nothing defending it. And so he's created a whole new company on this. And you can go online to look for Alex Epstein, Epstein, and the book is called The Moral Case for Fossil Fuel. And I get audio books because I listen to books, I don't read, because the Bible said faith comes by hearing. Joke. That's my wife, so you can lazy. But no, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuel, Alex Epstein, and what he has are videos of how you answer questions. He has videos of how to prepare for arguments when they come against you. And he knows how to do it politely, correctly, and where people will listen. And gives a lot of pointers on how you do it, how you don't do it. But it's The Moral Case for Fossil Fuel is the book. Alex Epstein's the person. He's got an Institute for some kind of research is the name of the organization. If you look that up, you'll have that. The other is this, the Texas Public Policy Foundation here in Texas, and also the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Young man's name is Jason Isaac. He was a state rep with me, and Jason will speak, will do internet, whatever you want to. It's the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and they are very good at what they do. And Jason will have Jason Isaac, Texas Public Policy Foundation, great resource. Of course, I'm available to go to my hot areas. She just feed me, and I'm where I need to be. But there's another book called Inconvenient Truths, I believe is the name of the book. That's right. And I can't think, but he's got a website that you can go to. Get on his Facebook. It's Inconvenient Facts. And Gregory something, Dr. whatever's his name. He's very active. You get follow him on Facebook. He's every day got something on there. He does videos, YouTubes, other things that completely, what he does with counter Al Gore's movie, Inconvenient Truths. He comes back, this is called Inconvenient Facts. Those are three great resources there. There's another book from the Texas Public Policy Foundation, Kathleen White, and some of the gentlemen wrote it, and it's called Fueling Freedom. And an example of 1900 Texas and Texas today, where I got that example. Fueling Freedom out of Texas Public Policy Foundation. So there's 4 places you can go and get the message. Any other questions? If not, thank y'all so much for having me. Thank you for watching.
I told you he was passionate, right? So I'm very proud of our commissioner. And with that, I make a motion that we adjourn our meeting tonight. Second. Ladies and gentlemen, please be careful going home. Look forward to seeing you next month.